Girls, and welcome back to yet another episode of Perf Podcasts, Coaches Chat. Today, I'm joined with Tarrin. How have you been, man?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good, yeah. So, it's been a couple of weeks since we saw each other in Malta, right?
Yeah, I think so. About 2 weeks.
Yeah. So, I think it's also our first time meeting each other.
Yeah, in person. Yeah.
Yeah.
With us being in Singapore and the UK, that was a really good experience. It was also lovely to meet David and Daisy.
Yeah, and Alex Cremens as well.
And Cremens.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people that I, don't get to meet very often. And these events are very fortunate to bump into loads of them at once. We talk about people I met when I went to Commonwealth a couple of years ago in New Zealand, like bumping into some of them, like Jason Clark, people like that.
Atlas, right?
Great experience.
Yeah.
No.
No?
I don't know what is it. He looks after the owner of North Shore.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
If you think about it, international comps is sort of like a reunion of sorts, and not just like.
Kind of.
I mean, it's mostly people competing at the highest level, but for us, not competing, it's also like a way of just seeing each other and catching up.
There's definitely a social element there, even for the athletes as well. I mean, so my partner competed in the 57s, and she's getting to see people that she has known for a couple of years, competed against for a few years. So it's nice to see them get that sort of social side as well.
So for today's podcast, I think David and Daisy couldn't really join us today because they're still overseas. I think David's like enjoying himself at Amsterdam. He's raving right as we speak. So hope he has fun. I think, sorry?
As it should be.
Yeah, we've all worked hard, and Daisy's spending time with her partner in, I think, Italy. So it's just the both of us, and I think we've learned quite a fair bit previously in this previous Junior Worlds. So I think in this podcast, it's good to like get some talking points and just share what we've learned with everyone, basically. So, So Tarrin, how was the meet run? Like, what do you think about the meet itself?
So I get quite a nice, like, unique perspective when I go to these competitions because I'm not there yet as a coach. I'm there to support my partner, but obviously understand powerlifting and invest in powerlifting. So get this really unique perspective where I'm not super busy, so I can actually sit back and take my time and take everything in and see how it's being ran from like a spectator's point of view. And this year, so I've been to including this year, I've been to the last three. Turkey, Romania, and Malta.
Yeah.
And by far, Malta was the best ran, best hotels, best sort of like. There's actually stuff for people to do when they're not competing compared to the last couple of years. So Romania was not too far from like a little town, but like everything was like getting little Ubers and everything away from the main hotel.
Yeah, it is.
And then in Turkey, Turkey was in the middle of nowhere. We still have running jokes about Turkey among me and a couple of the coaches. Okay, it was an interesting week for sure. So I think, spectators wise, it was great. The the actual platform and the venue itself was like really nice. It was in like a 2-tiered like sort of theater, had like a seating area around the top.
Yeah.
Was really well lit. It was like quite dark and moody.
It was dark and it was well lit, so it gave like a sort of cinematic kind of vibe. Yeah.
Which is so much better than like a random conference room in like a big
That's
hotel.
What it was like in Romania last year. It was just like
it was like that in Romania, and same in Turkey. Similar sort of vibe to Turkey as well.
It's so just a ballroom and like
bit of atmosphere to it was really,
Yeah.
really cool to see. And because it was tiered seating and it was also like crowded round it, the noise that got it got loud in there.
Especially those primetime sessions, the 74s,
amazing.
Yeah.
There's
Amazing,
some
truly.
insane performances like across the week. It's exciting to see them introduce prime time for the first time for juniors.
I think it's a really good way for like athletes to sort of push themselves if they're not in contention for podium finishes yet. I think one way they can sort of get a tangible achievement is being in prime time itself, because it's a whole different ball game. Yeah.
And that's not to take away from the B flights and everything.
Yeah, for sure. Because there are people like medaling from the B
lifts.
Yeah.
Huge lifts in some of the B flights as well. I mean, obviously getting to Worlds at any level is an incredible achievement. But the biggest thing about prime times, and I can see exactly why the IPF pushing it, is to make powerlifting a bit more like viewer friendly and a bit more digestible, a bit more watchable. Yeah. They're just so long. Like, I'm sure we've had this conversation before, but you look at like a football match or something, it's like 90 minutes is a nice slot of time.
20 people chasing a ball.
Yeah. Powerlifting prime time, mate, is still like 3 hours plus. Like, it's long.
Like
it
2
takes
football
forever.
Matches. Yeah.
Have you seen those videos of people hitting totals in under 60 seconds? We should do that. We should set up just make everyone do their whole total. They've got like 2 minutes and they've got to do everything. That would make it quick.
Yeah. And we would,
you're off,
and their totals would drop drastically as well.
Yeah, they would. For sure. You'd have some freak that'd be absolutely fine though. Would be able to do it still. But yeah. Anyway, obviously that's not gonna happen. But
yeah,
it's a funny thought for sure. Really good argument I heard a while ago was to have like 2 attempts instead of 3 attempts.
Right.
Make it way quicker. It'd be a third quicker. You fly through everything.
But the risk of bombing out will also be higher.
Exactly. Way more exciting. That's way more exciting.
No.
Like the top guys, he's just bombed out, so it opens a spot up for the next guy. You know what I mean? That's well exciting.
That's one way to think about it. That's one way to frame it.
Quicker and more exciting. That should be. But yeah, great comp. Expensive. Like if people's families were with them, one thing this year I did notice. So in Romania, it's like very hit and miss. I wish they would like standardize this process. If you're a spectator, you basically had to pay like a spectating fee to go and watch. Fortunately, like none of us had to, because we all had passes to go upstairs. But I remember someone telling me it was like €10 per day. So if you were there with like, I don't know, with say your partner or partners on the coaching team or whatever, and you wanted to come in and out the venue and you were there for most of the week, it's going to cost you the best part of like 50 to 70 euros.
It's not really cheap.
In Turkey, it was €10 for the week. And in Romania, there was nothing at all. So it's like,
it was. Yeah, you just walk
it'd be nice to have some sort of standardization there, because I know that's a very small detail that only affects a very small amount of people, but it's still something that's like clearly overlooked. I haven't quite got to yet. From a coach's point of view, I know Dave is not here to talk about it in more depth. But it sounded like at the beginning of the week, they were having quite a few issues with the schedule. People didn't know whether they were like what flight they were in.
So and I think there were changes made at the last minute as well. So like logistical errors were.
Few last minute changes. There was also people not knowing whether they were going to be in prime time or the B flight as well, like just not being informed. Which is, if they were both afternoon flights and they're fairly close, I get it. But there was one
morning to the last session.
Yeah, there's one that sticks out for me.
Yeah.
There was someone on the GB team. I can't remember if it was the 63s or 69s, and basically she had to be awake at 6 in the morning in case her weigh-in was at 7, because she didn't know whether she was going to be weighing in at 7 in the morning or like late afternoon.
Yeah.
So she didn't know until the day. They basically had a coach there waiting for the weigh-in list to be put up.
Yeah.
And just had to wait and find out. So just there's the one thing from the whole week that stood out, that like that basic scheduling just wasn't very strong.
I think it also, not that it's recommended, but in these sorts of challenging and tough times, it's also where you sort of test the athlete's adaptability as well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Like Worlds is all about adaptability. It's not really about like wanting to PR your numbers. And
Yeah.
I think if I were to delve deeper into adaptability in both coaching and as an athlete, I think it's very, it can be very sort of, it can be very superficial at first, because like you might have this, like let's say like you have athletes training into Worlds, there are things not accounted for, like flight, jet lag, food, stuff like that, and not to mention the peak as well. So it's very hard to nail things to the, like it's very hard to leave no stone unturned. And when things don't go as well as you think you might, I think one way to be very adaptable is just making decisions on the fly. I think we as coaches, we have time to change openers. We have 1 minute to make decisions, and I think decision making is probably one of, if not the most important skill you can have as a game day coach. Yeah.
Absolutely. And it's also, you're only going to get better at it with practice.
Yeah, for sure.
Most people will make mistakes. And when you're dealing with these like quick turnaround, quick decisions, like that's inevitable. But as I say, like the more mistakes you make, as long as you learn from them, the better you'll be in the long run. And that's normal. That's just like part of being human. So that's fine.
Yeah.
And, as you were saying, like being adaptable as an athlete, being adaptable as a coach, like have a plan. Definitely have a plan in place. Just don't get too attached to it. Like be ready for, if you
Things
can,
to go off plan as well.
Like, like if you can predict things as well, like plan for things going wrong. Like that's not totally out there. Someone is heavier than they're meant to be, like a day out. What's your next steps? Like, where do you go from there? I know we had to deal with that with my partner, like just like extra fluid retention from like we traveled quite close to the competition, so retaining more fluid. She also ended up like doing quite a lot of steps the day before, things like that. So we had to make last minute adjustments to get down, and I think we dealt with it well. But there's definitely things in the future that I would do differently. Yeah, of course. But I couldn't really make those calls, like in, like without that experience. If that makes sense.
For sure.
Yeah. I'm trying to think, but like generally, just a little bit of planning can go a long way. Like, so if you're traveling, we're lucky in the UK because most of the time all these competitions are in Europe, so it's a couple of hours difference. Like we don't have to deal with jet lag or anything like that. But the rest of the world that are turning up,
like Australia has it really bad.
Exactly. Yeah. So account for that. Like account for the jet lag. How are you going to combat that jet lag if you've never if you've never experienced jet lag before, like just do a little bit of research on how you can best work around it. Put yourself in the best position to be as quickly adapted as possible. Look into like what shops are available, what kind of foods there are in the country. You know, we like, if we have a very convenient like Western diet and we end up somewhere in the middle of Europe that doesn't necessarily have those things, is there anything you could take with you that would make it a little bit easier? I remember, I think it was Turkey, like one of the guys on the GB team turned up, he was gut cutting anyway, but turned up with packets and packets of like microwave rice.
Yeah, I think my partner and my
and
athlete did that as well.
Yeah, it's great. You can, because you're allowed to take stuff like that as long as like there's nothing wrong with that. Just again, it's just a little bit of planning and a little bit of hindsight, and
it just goes a long way.
It does, and it just makes it makes once you get there less stressful.
Yeah, I think people tend to neglect that making weight is also part of the peak, like the taper is part of the peak. But making weight is part of the process on getting the best possible result, and even refeeding as well.
Absolutely. And they should, you shouldn't really be running weight cuts that you haven't tried at least once. Like you should have at least trialed it once to know that it works and know how it impacts performance. And in some situations it will impact performance, but if you're competitive enough, you just take that performance impact into account in your attempt selection. You just open lighter and build into the day as if you were just like a slightly weaker athlete. But if you are sitting that high in the class that you are like top 3-4 nominations, like you still might be competitive even with that restriction, aren't you?
Yeah.
So it's trying to avoid that like overreach, especially for people taking like 3% plus like body weight cuts. You've got to be so much more mindful of that, because that refeed, rehydration, especially in
within 2 hours as well,
2-hour window.
Yeah.
And you take somewhere like Malta, which is very hot, very humid. During your rehydration process, you're just going to start sweating out again instantly. So it's going to make holding on to the fluid that you're putting back in much harder. Like it's going to make it more difficult. So again, it's really just like listing all the variables that will play into your plan and how you can try and mitigate those a little bit.
And sort of adapt as well, which kind of goes back to our point.
It comes straight back to what we were saying about adaptability.
Yeah. So I think we both made great points about being adaptable and I guess making the best, like sort of setting yourself up for the best day possible.
Yeah.
So I think now we can talk about like the performances of like our coaching teams and our athlete teams. So I think your country did amazing. Like you guys won best overall men, and you guys got third for junior females.
The women's junior females. Yeah,
sorry, team. Not best overall men, but best overall team. Yeah, for juniors.
Team, So
team.
Huge result.
Yeah.
It was really, really close actually. Like I did have the results before and I've completely lost them.
Because I know
the US did really well, didn't they?
Yeah, the US did really well, but I think you guys had 3 world champions and 1 second place.
Yeah,
for the
that
male
sounds
junior.
right. Because our champ, we had Nathaniel, Manson, and second must have
Nonso
been
and Joshua. Joshua, the super heavyweight.
That's right.
Right.
Which is just huge.
It's a huge showing for Great Britain. And
it's ridiculous.
Yeah,
the men's team are on an absolute streak at the moment, and some of them are really young still. Some of them, like you look at Nonso is 19.
Yeah,
like Nonso has 4 more years of juniors. Nathaniel's 20 or 21. Like he's still got a couple more years. We've got a really strong men's team coming in at the moment. Which is great. It's just great to see the women's team also developing really nicely.
Yeah.
The women's junior team is quite fresh and quite new this year. So a lot of the lifters who were in this team, it was their first international comp.
Yeah.
So the fact that the majority of the team was a new team and we've come away with like a placing medal is great. I think as that team, because obviously not all of them will be here next year, but a good handful of them will be.
Yeah.
As they sort of develop and grow into their places. I think we'll see another really strong junior women's team as well, which would be really good.
Yeah. And if you think about it, we see this consistent trend of success in Great Britain, especially in juniors. So I guess I have to ask from an outsider, I have to ask you, what do you think Great Britain is doing right now that contributes to their success?
So we can't take away from the athletes too much initially, in my opinion. Like, we have a really, really good talent pool in the UK. I think generally people, like the way people, I think the information that is available and is popular, like training styles that are popular, information is all like pretty good quality. Like people sort of know what they're doing quite quickly in a lot of cases. But again, huge talent pool. So there's plenty to choose from. There's like good levels of competitions to get people into the sport. Like grassroots is growing. You look at things like university lifting in the UK is huge at the moment.
Yeah, it's huge. Yeah.
So this is the biggest year we've ever had. We had like a 3-day competition with 2 platforms, saw well over like 400 lifters at our national university championships this year.
Yeah, that pretty much.
And it's only getting bigger.
Yeah, that pretty much matches Worlds, right? I think Worlds is like 700 huge, across a whole week.
Dude, enormous. Like, so I think back just my own experience within uni lifting. So I was at our university club for 5 years. When I started, there was maybe like 15 or 20 members in the club, maybe a little bit more, maybe like 30 tops. When I left in 5th year, there was somewhere between 120 and 150 active members of our club, just our one club. And you've got this happening all over the country and loads of different.
How many clubs do you guys have in like Great Britain?
Fuck, mate, there's like one at every uni.
Wow.
Obviously, some unis are smaller than others, but you have like.
So the total goes up to about like in the thousands.
What, unis?
Yeah, no, like the amount of people in powerlifting clubs.
Or people. Yeah, probably easily that. Yeah, it's well over. It'll be well over 1,000. Like,
yeah, that's easily more than what we have in Singapore.
Just in uni lifting.
Yeah, just uni.
So,
like, not high school.
So we have
a
big no, and these guys are getting coaching. They're getting good coaching. So we're finding those, like, I've seen it this year especially. We've just got men and women coming through who are like maybe haven't really give powerlifting a go, and you can just see there's just this raw potential there, and it's getting like caught. And it's like cool, and there's coaches available either for very cheap or for free through uni clubs. I mean, our membership fee that included like basic coaching was like £50, which is like $100 not US dollars, Australian dollars, for the entire year. That was it. So it was next to nothing. You had to buy like a membership and stuff on top of that, but the for the gym, the club membership was low. So I know I've gone off in a bit of a tangent, but big talent pool, juniors getting are getting picked up. From the coaching side of things, the standard of coaching in the UK has really developed, really has come on a long way in the last few years. I remember speaking to David. It's obviously harder because it's a lot more expensive for the coaches to come all the way from Australia than it is from the UK.
Oh yeah, for sure.
But David was saying there was only like a handful of like full-time coaches on the team. Like half the team were either people who were competing, or in one case it was someone's dad or something.
Yeah.
Which is cool. Like, it's sick. But in the UK, we have to, like, you know, people are like applying. You have coaches applying for spots on the team. There is always that, like, we're taking who we think will be the best, and there's definitely a focus from, like, big props to Jason, who's the junior head coach. He really focuses on building like an actual coaching team, and there's a focus on the team aspect, like how those individuals work together, whether they're able to communicate well with each other. And I think that has played into like a big part of the success, like the communication and understanding what each other's strengths are and what each other's like weaknesses are. So if I take, for example, one of my lifters that was competing, Sylvie, in the 52s. So obviously you're allowed two coaches. We had Owen, who's my coach, running all of her numbers for the day and putting together like a bit of like a comp plan, if you like. And then we had Jen, who was like very, very good at like soft skills and like people management, and was just making sure that she was in a good headspace throughout the whole day. Which Owen admitted himself, like, had anything gone wrong, he wouldn't have been able to pick it up as well as Jen would have. So the fact they understood each other's strengths and weaknesses and could work together as a team meant that they can deliver the best support for the athlete that's in front of them and adapt to that.
Yeah, and if you think about it, it just goes back to the talent pool of coaches as well, not just athletes, because you guys have such a huge amount of people to pick from. So you guys would obviously have the luxury to pick the best from the best.
Yes.
Cream of the crop.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
And I think for Singapore, we don't really have that luxury because we do want to send as many people as we can, but not everyone wants to go at the same time.
Yeah.
Time's an issue, costs an issue, and pretty much how much they prioritize powerlifting is also an issue.
Yeah.
So I think one thing about our coaching team, I think we gel very well together. We're not just because Singapore's so small, right? And like we just know everyone.
Yeah.
It also makes things really easy to work with. Like it doesn't feel like I'm working with a stranger. It just feels like a bunch of friends with the same goal, and we just work towards it. So like I think one example I could easily give is we had 3 athletes on one of the nights, and it was prime time. And you know how far we had to walk from the warm-up area to the holding area? It was like at least
yeah, it was. They were like on opposite sides, basically on opposite sides of the hotel.
Yeah, it was like a 2-3 minute walk.
There was no flight order, was there, in the warm-up room either? Like there was nothing to tell you where they were.
Yeah.
So yeah, I remember. Yeah,
I gave the suggestion to the head coach, Christoph, at the time, and I was sort of just camping at the holding area, just looking at the numbers, and I would also take the attempt cards with me in case they wanted to lower their openers. And I think one of our athletes' deadlifts, we managed to lower the opener because like he wasn't feeling the best, and it might not have been possible if I wasn't there because it just takes so long to just walk up. And I think it's also very important, like for the team to work well. It's not just like picking the best from the best. It's also understanding how everyone works, and most importantly, placing the athlete's needs like at the top. I think that's what really sort of it went well in terms of like coaching, like for us, the busiest session of like the whole championship.
Yeah, it really emphasized what you're saying there. It really emphasizes the
teamwork.
The teamwork, but also the need to have those soft skills that can often be overlooked in powerlifting, especially as a coach. Sorry, like having the soft skills to be able to understand the athlete and understand the person that's in front of you, because what works for one person, Ari, warming up, how chatty they are, like how much arousal, how much hype they need from you, like
even how much food or water as well.
All these, exactly, how much food or water,
like
and sometimes you might know better than them as well.
Yeah.
Like they might be not 100% and you're like, no, you're dehydrated, please drink. Like you need to have the confidence to talk to them about those sorts of things. And kind of just make sure that they trust you as well. For you to push them and put certain numbers on the bar, they need to know that you believe they've got X, Y, Z attempt within them.
Yeah. And I think it pretty much just sums up my coaching experience at Wolves. I think it was really fun. I think I'll run it back in Costa Rica next year. What about you, man? You're coming?
I don't know. So juniors, I'll have to see. I'll have to talk to. Obviously, it's something I'd really like to do. I'd like to, because I've been at these comps before. I love how they ran. I love the energy there. So it's something that I will definitely. I aspire to work towards within the national team. Obviously, there's limited spaces, so I will happily put myself forward. But I'll be at events for a while, I would imagine, as long as Kate keeps smashing it. I'll be get to go to a few more, watch a few more for sure. We've got Euros in like 3 weeks right? Or something already. Junior Euros, come around real quick. So we're back in Pilsen in Czech. So it'll be another good one to find some, like, trying to learn some more bits. Try and take away something every time I head over to one of these competitions, or else, in my opinion, it's a waste of me going if I don't at least try and learn something. Each time. Yeah.
Anything else from your end, Tarrin? I think we've covered it.
No, I think we've covered that really nicely. Just some good focuses, good takeaways.
Yeah. I look forward to seeing you hopefully like next year again.
Hopefully, mate. I'd like to do so.
All right. And to the viewers, thank you for listening into our Perf Podcast Coaches Chat. And we'll see you in the next episode. Thank you.
Thank you.